Credo Technology CRDO, Beginner's Guide. Picture an AI data center as a warehouse stacked with thousands of GPUs, graphics processing units, the chips that do the heavy math behind ChatGPT and other AI models. Now picture the boring but essential job of wiring all those chips together so they can talk at insane speeds without ever dropping a packet. That wiring job is what Credo does, and over the last 2 years it has turned them into one of the most important suppliers inside the AI build-out. Quick reminder, this is educational only, not investment advice. So, what does CRDO actually do? Credo's main product is something called an active electrical cable, or AEC, AC. Think of it as a smart copper cable. A regular cable just carries a signal from one point to another, but an AEC has a tiny custom chip embedded inside each end that cleans up the signal and keeps the connection rock solid at extremely high speeds. Inside an AI cluster, every GPU needs to be wired to every other GPU, and Credo's AECs have become the go-to choice for short-distance hops, about 7 meters or less, inside and between server racks. AECs and their custom chips brought in about $412 million in fiscal year 2025, which was 94% of total revenue. Two smaller lines round out the business: engineering services, where Credo does custom design work, and IP licensing, where it rents out blueprints for the high-speed circuits it invented. Both are shrinking on purpose as the cable business takes over. To see how Credo makes money, picture a simple three-box flow. On the left, Credo's suppliers, mainly TSMC, which manufactures the chips, and BizLink, which assembles the physical cables. In the middle, Credo itself, which is what people call a fabless semiconductor company, meaning it designs chips, but pays someone else to build them. On the right, Credo's customers, and this is the key fact, they're almost all hyperscalers. That's the industry word for the handful of giant companies running massive cloud data centers: Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Meta. Amazon alone was about 39% of revenue in the most recent quarter. There are also a few newer customers like neocloud operators, smaller AI specialist cloud providers such as TensorWave, plus AI server and networking equipment makers. Credo also sells optical chips, used when light rather than copper carries the signal, under a brand called Zero Flap Optics. But the heart of the business today is selling AECs to hyperscalers building AI clusters. So who does CRDO compete with, and how does it win? Credo's main competition comes from two much bigger semiconductor companies you may have heard of, Marvell and Broadcom. Both have far more revenue and longer customer relationships than Credo. So why does Credo keep winning the AI cable business? 2 reasons. First is the Zero Flap brand. In an AI training cluster, a single dropped link, called a link flap, can crash a job that's been running for days and cost the customer millions. Credo's cables are engineered to deliver roughly 1,000 times better reliability than the laser-based optical alternatives, while using about half the power. Once a hyperscaler designs Credo's cables into a cluster, switching to a competitor would mean retesting the entire fabric, a months-long project with real production risk. That's called a switching cost, the friction that keeps a customer locked in, and it's the closest thing Credo has to a moat. A moat just means a competitive advantage that's hard for rivals to copy. Second is system-level integration. Marvell and Broadcom mostly sell individual chips. Credo sells the chip, the assembled cable, and a software toolkit called Pilot that lets the customer monitor the health of every link in real time. That bundle is harder to replicate than any of the pieces on their own. That said, Credo's moat is narrow rather than wide. BizLink is the only firm that assembles the cables, a single supplier risk. Broadcom and Marvell can build competing AECs if they decide the market is big enough. And about 88% of Credo's most recent quarterly revenue came from just 3 customers, so losing one would hurt badly. What are the key drivers for the business over the past 5 years? Revenue went from about $193 million in fiscal 2024 to a run rate of around $1.3 billion in fiscal 2026, a roughly 6x jump in 2 years. Three things drove it. First, AECs became the de facto standard for short-distance AI connectivity. NVIDIA's CEO famously said, "Where you can use copper, because copper is cheaper, cooler, and more reliable than lasers over short distances." That sentence basically blessed Credo's whole product category, and Credo had the reliable, low-power, ship-now solution hyperscalers needed. Second is something engineers call an N-1 process node strategy. The leading-edge chip factories produce chips on a 5-nanometer or even smaller process, tiny, expensive, and supply-constrained. Credo deliberately uses TSMC's older 12-nanometer process, 2 or 3 generations behind. For connectivity chips, which move data around rather than do AI math, 12-nanometer is plenty fast. The benefit is cheaper wafers and easier supply, so Credo can ship product when bigger rivals are stuck waiting in line at the leading-edge fab. Third, Credo went from a 1-customer company to a 4-customer company. In fiscal 2024, Amazon alone was 67% of revenue, dangerously concentrated. By the most recent quarter, 3 different hyperscalers were each more than 10% of revenue. Each new hyperscaler design win is a multi-year, multi-hundred-million-dollar commitment, because once Credo's cables are designed in, the customer keeps buying them as the cluster scales. That diversification is what turned a niche AEC vendor into a serious connectivity platform. To sum it up, Credo designs the smart copper cables and matching chips that wire together the GPUs inside AI data centers. And a wave of hyperscaler AI spending has made those cables a standard ingredient in modern AI clusters. 2 things to watch as a learner: whether the zero-flap optics line, which extends the same reliability story to longer-distance optical links, ramps up in the second half of 2026, and whether new hyperscaler customers keep getting added beyond the current top 3. One more reminder, this is educational only, not investment advice. Read the company's filings and earnings calls before you form your own view.